History is filled with kings, but it is haunted by only one, Alexander. We think we know him, the undefeated general, the youthful conqueror. But we've missed the point. To understand Alexander, you must understand his ambition. And to understand that, you must look not at his victories, but at his audacity. To understand the son, you must first understand the father. Philip II of Macedon, a brute, a brilliant diplomat, and a military revolutionary. He took a backwater kingdom of goat herders and turned it into a superpower. He gave his son two things. First, an instrument, the Macedonian phalanx, an army that was, quite simply, unbeatable. The second thing he gave him was a shadow, a rival. Alexander would spend his entire, short life trying to eclipse the man who made him. And then there was his mother, Olympias, a woman of snakes and shadow and ecstatic religious cults. She whispered in his ear that his true father was no mere mortal king, but the god of gods, Zeus himself, a dangerous thing to tell a boy like Alexander. His education, then, was a collision of opposites. His mother taught him he was a god. His father taught him how to kill. And then there was his tutor, Aristotle. He was taught by the greatest mind in Greece, and then decided his teacher's world was too small. Aristotle gave him the Iliad. Alexander slept with it and a dagger under his pillow. He wasn't reading a story. He was reading his destiny. He would not be a philosopher. He would be Achilles, reborn. When Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia in 334 BC, he wasn't just launching a war. He was fulfilling a prophecy he had written himself. His first act? To visit the tomb of Achilles. This was not strategy. This was biography. His generals, old men who had served his father, begged him to wait. The Persians held the high ground across the Granicus River. It was a death trap. Alexander charged. He led the elite companion cavalry himself, straight into the river, straight up the muddy bank, into the teeth of the enemy. It was reckless. It was suicidal. And it was brilliant. He shattered the Persian line by pure, terrifying force of will. At Issus, he faced the king of kings, Darius III. Look at this. The Alexander mosaic. This is the moment. Darius, in his chariot, horrified. Alexander, on his horse, Bucephalus, eyes locked on one man. He didn't fight the Persian army. He fought Darius. He broke the king, and the army followed. His audacity only grew. The city of Tyre was an impregnable island fortress. It had never been taken, so Alexander did the impossible. He built a 1-kilometer causeway through the sea to get to it. He literally bent the map to his will. When the Tyrians resisted, he crucified 2,000 survivors. His will and his cruelty were absolute. Egypt, however, welcomed him as a liberator. They crowned him pharaoh. But this wasn't enough. He marched his men deep into the lethal Libyan desert, to the remote oracle of Siwa. We don't know what the oracle told him. He never said. But when he emerged, he was different. He was no longer just the son of Philip. He was the son of Zeus Ammon. For most men, being called a god is the end of the story. For Alexander, it was merely confirmation. At Gaugamela, Darius brought the world. Scythed chariots, war elephants, an army outnumbering Alexander's at least 5-1. The Persian plan was to envelop and crush him. Alexander saw it, and he did the last thing any sane general would do. He rode away from the center. He led his cavalry wide, stretching the Persian line, pulling it apart, until, for a single moment, a gap opened. That was all he needed. Alexander wheeled his companions, formed a wedge, and charged directly at Darius. The king fled. The Achaemenid Empire, the largest the world had ever known, was his. He had done it. He had conquered the largest empire the world had ever seen. He was 25, and this is where his real story begins. Because Alexander wasn't just a conqueror. He was an architect. He didn't just raise, he built. He stitched his new empire together with cities. Over 70 of them, and with a staggering lack of humility, he named most of them Alexandria. His ego cast in stone and papyrus. The greatest Alexandria in Egypt was a marvel. It was built on a grid, a perfect Greek city. But its genius was its location. It was the joint where Greece, Egypt, and Asia met. He built the library, the museum. He wasn't just building a port. He was building a new center of gravity for the entire human mind. And then, he did something that truly baffled and horrified his men. He stopped being Macedonian. He began to wear the robes of a Persian king. He adopted their customs. He demanded his men perform proskynesis, the Persian act of bowing before the king. To the Greeks, this was blasphemy. One prostrates before a god, not a man. His men thought they were conquering barbarians. Alexander realized he was inheriting a civilization. His final, most audacious act of fusion came at Susa in 324 BC. The Susa weddings. He took a Persian princess as his wife and forced 10,000 of his Macedonian soldiers and 80 of his top officers to marry Persian noblewomen in a single, massive ceremony. It was not a celebration. It was a political statement written in bloodlines. He was trying, quite literally, to breed a new, unified ruling class. This was his vision, not Greek over Persian, but Greek and Persian. One world, his world. But the man who willed a world could not will his own body to endure. After a drinking bout in Babylon, he fell ill with a fever. He died at 32. His empire, built on his will alone, immediately shattered. His generals, the Diadochi, tore his world apart, or so it seems. The borders vanished. The political unity was a dream, but the idea was indestructible. Alexander had carried Greek culture on the tip of his spear, and where it landed, it planted a seed. We call it Hellenism. His legacy wasn't a map. It was a language. For the next 300 years, the lingua franca of the civilized world was Koine Greek. The Romans would come later and conquer his kingdoms. But as the poet Horace said, captive Greece took her brutish conqueror captive. Rome would be conquered, culturally, by Hellenism. And in the Far East, in what is now Afghanistan, Greek sculptors, descendants of his soldiers, encountered a new faith, Buddhism, and they gave the Buddha a face. For the first time, a face modeled on their own god, Apollo. That is Hellenism, carved in stone, a world away from Athens. Alexander's ambition was to be more than a man. He failed. He died of a fever, just like anyone else. But in doing so, he succeeded at something far greater. He didn't just conquer the world, he invented it.